So if you're just getting into making videos, whether that's for YouTube or for other stuff, one of the biggest things on your mind is probably what camera you should get that'll give you the best bang for your buck. And I think I figured out the cheapest camera worth getting while you're starting out. Like, if you want to go any cheaper than this, I'd say film with your phone. And real quick, I'm not necessarily making this video to tell you exactly what to get, but rather to show you guys what you should be looking for in a beginner camera when you're first starting out on YouTube. But real quick, if you're new here and wondering why I know so much stuff about cameras, hey, I'm Ryan. I'm a videographer and I get paid to make videos for local companies and musicians and stuff like that. On this channel I make content to help you guys make better YouTube videos for yourselves. So if you're into that sort of thing, check out one of the other videos after this one. And as far as the camera I've been talking about, it's actually this one. So let me go ahead and switch over now. So now we're on the Canon EOS R, and this is the Canon T3i. This is actually one of the first cameras that I started making videos with, and it came from my buddy, he's a musician, his name is Matt Walden. I'll link his channel in the description there. But I do remember this one video that we made for his song Uni's Not For Me, and it just took off and people absolutely loved that video. Even though it's just shot on this camera that was sitting in his closet for like years. So the Canon T3i was originally released in 2011, making this a 9-year-old model now. And they were originally selling for about $800. So I was kind of curious to see where they were at on the used market nowadays. And I found one on Craigslist for $200, which is cheap as hell, and it came with a kit lens, so you're kind of just all set to go and make videos, and it's better than your phone or better than your webcam on your laptop, I guess. If you're sketched out about buying used cameras, consider this. Let's say instead of buying a used one, you go ahead and buy a brand new $1,000 camera. As soon as you buy it, that depreciation hits and it loses $200, $300 worth of its value. You can't resell it for more than $700 or $800 if you bought it for $1,000 new. So if you do that, you're guaranteed to miss out on $200 or $300. Whereas in the other case, if you buy a $200 or $300 used camera, you could use it for a year, 2 years, and then resell it at practically the same price. So you don't lose any money the entire time. And so you basically get a free test ride to see if you like making videos and doing this whole YouTube thing. It's just way lower risk and no one's gonna care about the quality difference between this and another camera. Anyways, let's start talking about what I like about this and why I think you should get a similar camera to get started on. I guess I'll start with the design of the body here. I really love the flip out screen. It's really important to be able to see yourself so that you can line up your shot, make sure that your face is in focus, and record yourself. It's basically impossible to do if you can't see yourself. It just makes it way harder. A lot of the pro camera setups will be able to have an external monitor so they can swivel that around and see themselves, but that's not in our budget. We like this instead. The other thing that's sweet about this thing is the interchangeable lenses. Canon EF lenses are sick, and there's a ton of them. There's even a lot of really cheap ones that you could upgrade to, and they work out way better than just the regular kit lens. So over time you can build up a good arsenal of EF glass that you can then use on all your other cameras moving forward. That is, if you stick with Canon cameras, of course. Let's put that back on there. We don't want dust getting on the sensor. Alright, now let's talk about the mic port. This camera has a mic input so that you can use an external microphone on this camera, which is really important because, here, just a second. There we go. The on-camera microphone that comes with the cameras sounds really terrible. Alright, let's hook this thing back up now. So that along with your camera right away, I would purchase something like this. This is just $60. It's a Rode Video Micro, and you just pop it on the top here and plug it in the side, and you're good to go. And the audio that comes out of this thing is actually really good just for $60. If you want to get something cheaper, then you could probably get like a $20 lav mic or something. It could just plug into the same port there. And the reason that this is so important is because if the audio on your videos have very terrible quality, it's going to annoy people and they're not going to want to watch it at all. But the image, on the other hand, it doesn't matter if you're missing a few pixels here and there. Alright, before we get to the last specs to watch out for on a camera that you're gonna get started with, I wanted to see if I can really unlock the potential of this thing. So let's go see what we can make.
Honestly, I don't know who the fuck you trust. You see my friend or my foe. I'm a ex draw. Yeah, she give me that claim I was wrong. I remember back when I was younger, I was happy. Nowadays feel like no one understands. I'm good at artists, silly on Bob, Bambi. Baby's yellow, text. She wanna eat me like candy. Running through rags, track me. I'll run up.
You had sunscreen all up in your beard.
I feel like I might still have some. Just chilling, reading my book.
Wait, listen back to this with no music, just the sound design.
At least it was a good beer.
Like it's all cool and
refreshing
until the end. It's just the best part.
I don't think I sipped that loud. Oh God. Oh God. How did you even make that sound?
I didn't make that sound. That came off of Environmental Elements.
Oh, okay, cool.
That was cool. That T3i is sick. Shout out to my friend Scott for helping me out with that sequence. Oh, and real quick, the color grading I used on that, I'm going to give you guys the LUT for it. So go ahead into the description. There should be a link there. You guys could go download that for free. All right, now let's talk about kind of the software side of this camera. For some reason, I really like the colors that come out of Canon cameras. They just have their color science nailed down. I filmed with a Sony camera before, and I really didn't like how the skin tones came out. They kind of came out a little green tinged, and I just like how Canons do it much better. And while I'm comparing this to Sony cameras, we need to talk about the menu system. On Sony cameras, there are pages and pages and pages of menus, and they get kind of confusing, whereas Canon menus are a lot easier to figure out and a lot more forgiving for beginners. One of my favorite YouTubers, Potato Jet, actually made a 40-minute long video just going through every single option on the Sony camera. And there's a ton of stuff in there that he didn't even know. And now this last point is super important. Alright, here's the last thing that I like about the T3i before I tell you one thing that I wish it had, and which camera has that thing. Whichever camera you get, you gotta make sure it shoots in 1080p. This one does, and it was one of the first cheap DSLRs to do so. But not only does it shoot in 1080p at 25 frames per second, but it also shoots at 720p at 60 frames per second. That means you can shoot in slow-mo, slowing it down by a little bit more than 1/2. If you remember that little sequence I shot with Scott, a lot of those clips were in slow-mo, so they were shot in 720p. I bet you a lot of you guys didn't even notice. But that's just because they were quick little clips that were sprinkled in throughout actual 1080p footage. You don't want all your footage to be in 720p. And finally, if this had just one more thing, I would say it'd be perfect for beginners. But it doesn't have it, and I guess it's close enough. What I wish this camera had was autofocus while filming. It's such a big deal because then you could just put your camera down and then it'll track you. Like I can come in here and I'm in focus, and I go about here and I'm in focus. But it really doesn't hurt to just sit down and then turn off the autofocus. Look, it still looks amazing, and it doesn't need to track me the entire time if I'm not moving around and doing a bunch of other things. So there is one camera similar to this one that does have autofocus while filming, and that's this camera's successor, the T4i. Canon figured out some new sensor technology so that they could make it happen on their cheaper DSLRs. So if you can find a T4i DSLR for just as cheap, then I'd say go for that. But if not, I'd say go for one of these or something comparable, because now you know what to look for. And if you want to learn how these cameras work and how to shoot on manual, go ahead and click that video right over there. Don't forget to grab your free LUT in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.